culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
And, of course, the idiots in the U.S. military deny that the Russians did it. You know, if the Russians had not gone into this campaign, ISIS would be expanding their territory rather than receding in their territory. You know that. But keep vilifying Russia until you find out who is really behind the whole game. Hillary Clinton traded uranium, U.S. uranium stores, to Russia, and she's running on an anti-Russian platform. It's amazing to me how stupid the people are in this country. But there is hope. There is hope. There is hope. Not everybody is that much of a dope. Not everyone goes for the rope-a-dopa of Hillary Clinton. Her numbers are falling. Trump has rising numbers. I'm happy to tell you that. I mean, even L.A. Times, they don't love him. They hate him. And he's in Mexico right now at his summit on trade, security, immigration. Hillary's, of course, nowhere to be seen. Trump lands in Mexico. Meanwhile, in Brazil, the first female leader of Brazil was stripped of her presidency in an historic impeachment vote because of corruption. And if you study this story, what she has done in Brazil is identical to what Obama has done in America, almost point by point. The difference is they have democracy in Brazil and an opposition party, and we have no opposition party and no democracy in our political structure in this country anymore, and it's going to get a lot worse, by the way. I saw a story yesterday before I left the air that I didn't dare read on the air. You know the Department of Homeland Security and what a failure it is. They permitted the Boston Marathon bombing. They permitted the bombings in Orlando. They permitted the bombings in Southern California. They had these people who did it, the Muslims, under their eye, under their radar, and they didn't arrest them. They didn't fire the idiot who runs DHS, Jay Johnson, the Washington lobbyist. He came out yesterday with a speech that should chill every American, because I'm going to play it during this hour. He wants a special declaration to the Department of Homeland Security to take charge of the elections in the United States of America. Do you realize what he's saying? They want an absolute coup. If a gang took over America, if Black Lives Matter took over America and did a thing like this, you'd say, that's outrageous. They can't do that. Well, what do you mean they can't do that? They're doing it right in front of your eyes. The criminal gang running America has just landed 10,000 Muslim Syrians in the United States of America without a peep from a congressional figure, without a peep from anyone in the media. He violated the Constitution. He violated the wishes of the American people. He violated the wishes of Congress. Moreover, he violated our national security by bringing in 10,000 Syrians. And because, it's like any criminal. If you don't stop them, they escalate their acts. You ask anyone, it's like a drug. Criminal behavior is like using drugs. The more you use, the more you need. Obama's criminal behaviors are an example of a man who is seeking a greater thrill to see what he can get away with next. So he does one thing and there's no opposition. So now he has to escalate his crimes against America. So he escalates it. Guess what? No opposition. He doesn't get a big enough thrill. He has to escalate the crimes against America. So he escalates his actions against America. And there's not a peep of opposition. Zero. It's unbelievable to me. And I'll tell you more about it because it's frightening to believe that this guy at DHS was, first of all, not fired numerous times, but now he has the audacity to come out and have the nerve to say that he wants to take over the elections in America, calling it, listen to this, under the guise, listen to how clever this gang is. He says it is the equivalent of our electrical grid. He says our elections are critical infrastructure, and he has a right to take over our elections. You have no idea what I'm saying to you, because this is so big that it's going right past your eyes. I want you to listen to Jay Johnson, head of Department of Homeland Security, in a minute, saying that he wants to take charge of the elections in the United States of America. This is a day after, by the way, a day after we were told by another division of the gang that if there is a death during the campaign of either candidate, they will suspend the election. They're basically telling us that if Trump wins, they'll suspend the election because something's going to happen. Or they're going to take control of the election to make sure Trump can't win. And meanwhile, at the same time this is going on, there's no opposition. Which Hillary scandal do you think is most damaging? I'm going to give you 4 choices. Clinton Foundation, email server, Benghazi, hiding health records. I'll read them again. Which Hillary scandal do you think is most damaging? Hiding her health records, Benghazi, email server, or the Clinton Foundation? That's the first question out of the box here in the Savage Nation. Now, while you're deciding what you want to call on, you don't have to get stuck on that thing. I have so many other topics I haven't even touched on. Give me time. Give me time. The mind is a-racing because the topics are demanding that I race through them to get to you. I want to thank my audience for making this show the #1 program on WABC in New York City and many other stations. The ratings just came out for the last month. We get them every month. If I don't tell you about them, you're not going to hear about them. No one's going to tell you about their ratings. I do because we live and die. It's like that movie I told you about, To Live and Die in L.A. I love that theme, the John Franken movie. I can't get that theme because the way that pounding thing, that pounding theme of those 2 narc detectives, the whole movie, you forgot it, forget about it. But radio is very much like that. It's like a constant drive. Either you drive yourself or you just drop off the wayside. And I drive myself. Not only is this show #1 on WABC, but, and this is important for you to hear, because again, if I'm not telling it to you, you won't hear it, I beat my #1 competitor on the call letter deficient station in New York City by approximately 30%. He's a fine performer, by the way. I have nothing negative to say about him. He's on the other station. It's the call letter deficient station in New York City. I have about 30% more audience than he does, which is astonishing considering the amount of audience he has in the television world. It's an important thing to know. And he's also the gentleman that I ran against for the Radio Hall of Fame nomination, and you helped me win. So again, I have to say it because you got to know that you are impacting the outcome not only of radio, but of everything else in this country. The problem is we have no representation. We have taxation without representation. We have a gang running America, and there's nobody stopping them. It's an amazing thing to watch going on. It's like every day I can't even sleep. I woke up 5 in the morning and I said, I don't want to think about the problems yet. I just want to lay in bed in this lazy state. I love the early morning just before dawn. The slightest amount of light wakes me up. I don't care what blackout shades I use. That way, okay, the animal thing. And in that moment that the light comes through, I don't get out of bed. I train myself to stay in a semi-hypnotic state. That subconscious, conscious state that we all go into, it is one of the most creative times of the day. I don't know if you know that. You ask anyone who's creative how great that time is for thinking about what it is you want to create, whether you be a painter, a writer, a surgeon, a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer. Any productive member of society knows that he or she has to think about what they're going to do that day and in what order and how they're going to do it. You can lay it out in those moments. Well, in the dawn of today, I thought of Jay Johnson saying he wants to take control of the elections. And I said, this can't be going on in my country in front of my eyes, that there is literally a slow-moving coup occurring right in front of our eyes, and they're getting away with it on a daily basis, and there's virtually no opposition. I don't expect weaklings like Wolf Blitzer to say anything, or phonies like Jake Tapper, or the others on NBC, the Chuck Todd with a fake beard. They're all beards for Obama. But the people, we run this country. Why are we powerless? Why are the tens of millions of us so powerless, I ask myself, when there's only a gang of about 100 destroying this nation, stealing it on a daily basis? It's utterly unbelievable to me. And now, having introduced the show in that manner, I want to go over to the story that I mentioned before we go into the first stop set of this important show, and talk about Rousseff stripped the presidency in a historic impeachment vote in Brazil. She was the first female leader. I'm not celebrating that she was a woman and got knocked out, but the corruption is what knocked her out. They threw her out. She's a far leftist, by the way. A radical leftist on the order of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Let me tell you, the parallels are overwhelming. And she was thrown out during an impeachment vote. She represented the leftist Workers' Party, which is exactly the equivalent of the Democrat Party of today in the United States of America. And the sweeping corruption scandals, along with the worst economic crisis in decades, and the government's tone-deaf responses to the souring national mood, I'm quoting the New York Times now, led to her downfall. Why are the same elements in the United States of America not leading to the downfall and impeachment of Obama and the absolute rejection of Hillary Clinton, who was an equivalent of this woman? Now, here's the important thing. To many of her critics, we read, the impeachment was a fitting fall for an arrogant leader. Who does that remind you of? Barack Obama. At the helm of a political movement that had lost its way. Who does that remind you of? Barack Obama, who supports Black Lives Matter and all the other leftist slime of the United States of America. But listen to this. Her leftist supporters call her impeachment a coup, even though it was voted upon. They're calling it a coup. The corruption was overwhelming. Think of the congresswomen and the senators in San Francisco and their many deals with their family members. That's not corruption? The scandal-plagued party of Brazil is not equivalent to the scandal-plagued Democrat Party of today, especially with the green rackets, especially with the Clinton Foundation. You name it, they're doing it. Now, you read further into this article, and you see the Workers' Party of Brazil that supported this corrupt woman is almost identical to the United States in the sense that they're very much policy-wise like that of the Democratic Party. And I'll read it to you. You can't believe the parallels. They're overwhelming. So the Brazilian leader was thrown out on an impeachment vote. Her supporters, listen to what she was found guilty of. Wait. She was found guilty of, well, so many different things. I don't want to read it to you. It's too much information already. And the fact of the matter is, what she did in Brazil parallels what Obama is doing in the United States of America. Moreover, what Hillary Clinton will continue to do if, God forbid, the American people are stupid enough to erect, I guess I'm thinking of the scandal in New York, to elect, I was thinking Anthony Weiner, to elect a corrupt woman to the presidency of the United States of America. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
When I adopted her, she was a mess. Scabs, itching, licking, missing fur, hot spots, a thin, dull coat. So I take the dog to the vet for the standard run-of-the-mill tests and treatments. No results. I hear your advertisement on the radio.
DINOVITE.com.
859-428-1000.
So I get the 5-pound box of Dinovite and the Lico Chops within a 4-week total. Instead of a German Setter, I have a German Shepherd. Sheba is 105 lean pounds of shiny, smooth, happy dog for life because she gets fed Dinovite. And the results, they're just incredibly outstanding. And she loves it. When you rescue a dog, you have to do the right thing. You've got to feed them right for life. Do the Dinovite. Dinovite for life.
859-428-1000.
DINOVITE.com.
The Retirement Navigator is the financial show that helps you find your way to a secure retirement. Tune in Sunday afternoons at 1 as your hosts Bruce Gray and Ted Porter help you in that trek towards financial security. Listen Sundays at 1 on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
Labor Day. It's the last big hurrah of the summer. So tell me what it means to you.
My most memorable Labor Day was the backyard barbecue and fire of 2004. Too much lighter fluid, too close to the house. My wife banned me from barbecuing till she restored my privileges in 2008. And I'm proud to say I'm still married to the same woman today.
Make your Labor Day one to remember. Enter the Ultimate Labor Day Party giveaway and you could win $4,000. So it'll be a day you'll never forget.
Enter to win at this station's website.
With your Mayo Clinic Radio Health Minute, I'm Tracy McCray. In the United States, only heart disease and cancer cause more deaths than chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, is a group of diseases that block airflow and cause breathing difficulty.
Things like chronic bronchitis and emphysema. While it's a disease of the lungs, Dr. Michelle Milkey and a team of researchers had found that in older adults, COPD also raises your risk for mild cognitive impairment.
Especially those that had a diagnosis for 5 years or longer were at over a 2-fold increased risk of developing cognitive impairment. And this was primarily problems with attention and also with planning and judgment.
Dr. Milky says the research is a call to action for physicians who should watch for cognitive changes among individuals with COPD. For more information, talk with your doctor or visit mayoclinic.org.
This is for my belly, my paunch, my spare tire. I know we had some good times. God knows I'll never forget that night in Albuquerque with the burritos.
It's never easy to lose something that's been such a huge part of you, Bob. Where'd the magic go?
Well, I'd recently begun taking the stairs more and more instead of the elevator, and then we started seeing less and less of each other. One day, it was just gone.
Small step number 67. Take the stairs instead of the elevator or escalator. It's just one of the many small steps you can take to help you become a healthier, well, you. Get started at www.smallstep.gov and take a small step to get healthy.
A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Moisture and the right temperature. Ah, the perfect invitation for me and my moldy friends to hold a party in your home. We love ruining your carpet, destroying your drywall, damaging the very structure of your house. We may even affect your health.
Don't let mold hold a party in your home. For fast prevention and treatment, visit www.stopmold.org.
Not long ago, it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank, to expand a business, to go on vacation, to buy a new car, remember? But today, withdrawing your own cash has become very, very risky. Listen, according to the Secret War on Cash, a new Swiss America white paper I just read, it made my hair stand on end. You better be careful when you go to the bank. I learned why banks are now required to spy on you and I for the government. And then they report any financial behavior deemed suspicious or unusual. What does that mean? Get the Secret War on Cash now by calling 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. Did you know simply spending cash today is enough to get you branded as a potential criminal? You heard me. You better read The Secret War on Cash. It's free by calling 800-289-2646. The new war against cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. Find out how to survive and thrive by reading The Secret War on Cash. It's free if you call 800-289-2646 right now.
You're listening to Michael Savage. Coming up at 3, it's Mark Levin on Talk Radio 560 KSFO.
She was a member of the far-left party, just like Obama. And while she herself, listened to this carefully, was not impeached because she personally enriched herself, she was impeached because she juggled the books to make the economy look better than it was. Does that sound familiar? Transferred assets from state-run banks to make the books look better. Didn't Obama just transfer $400 million to the corrupt Islamist nation of Iran? Where'd that money come from? Where was the $400 million sitting? Ask yourself, where was the $400 million that he took it? Did Congress approve it? No, so where was the money? We had an accountant on who said that 2 weeks ago. Ask where the money was. That's an impeachable offense. There's one crime after another going on right in front of our eyes here. Now, look, you know I'm all in for Donald Trump, and I've been so from the beginning for many reasons. Not because I like his hairstyle. It's because I like his politics. He's as close to borders, language, and culture as I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I want him to win. I think it's our last chance. Otherwise, we're going to go by the way of the far-left Armed Revolutionary Guard movement in Brazil. This woman, Rousseff, by the way, as a youth, was a member of the Armed Revolutionary Youth, the equivalent of, let's say, the Black Lives Matter or Black Panthers of our time, who would be armed and dangerous in the streets of America. Sound familiar? That's who she was. Nevertheless, it was Trump who came on the show in 2011, and even then, he was laying out issues, even though the media says he's not specific, he just mumbles, he speaks in generalities, bullcrap. He was laying out on my show in 2011 his positions. And I'm going to give you a special today. You're going to get a copy of that MP3 for free, a 2011 Trump interview with me, and hear how specific Trump is on the issues, even back in 2011, despite media lies. All you got to do is simply pre-order Scorched Earth at Amazon.com or at your favorite bookstore. And all you do is email a receipt to scorchedearthbook@gmail.com. And what happens is you automatically are going to receive this bonus MP3 free of charge. It's a great offer because it's free. So having said that, let's look at some of the other stories that I'm going to cover today on the program. I have only a minute left now. Again, it's one of my hyperactive moods. I'm flying along. I'm in the greatest mood of my life. I'm feeling younger every day. I really don't know what's wrong with me, but I just feel great. Things are terrific. I'm looking forward to this September, October, November, December, and then after January, when the video portion of the show kicks in, I guess I'll have to get a hairdresser or something. Here's an interesting one. Remember yesterday I called for Child Protective Services in New York City to launch a probe of Anthony Weiner? Remember there was a giant sound of silence? I remember I said I want someone from Child Welfare in New York City to call me. I said, why is he being protected by de Blasio and Hillary? Guess what? This morning, they heard me. Child welfare officials are investigating Weiner in the wake of the Post exclusive report that he sent a lewd selfie that showed his young son lying back next to him while he had an arousal. It's a shocker. The man needs to be taken off in handcuffs, in my opinion, right now. He needs to be processed immediately. He's a predator. He's dangerous. And I'm not saying this because I know him or the wife or the politics. The man is a predator, in my opinion. He meets every protocol of predator.
Savage.
Startling. Chargers to greet Colin Pupiknik with a salute to the military on Thursday night. That's the controversial failed football player with the Christian tattoos who allegedly became a Muslim once he met a woman who's a Muslim. He now hates America. Chargers to greet Colin Pupiknik with a salute to the military on Thursday night. You see, it's not his hometown of San Francisco where you can get away with this trashy talk against America. They accept that here. That's part and parcel of the lie of San Francisco. But for the first time on the field since sitting for the national anthem, he's coming into the NFL's #1 military town on a night dubbed the Salute to the Military. That's very interesting. As one African-American in red, white, and gold sits during the song, another Petty Officer First Class Stephen Powell in dress military white sings it. A color guard representing the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and 240 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines holding a massive super flag on the field will aid the visual aspect of the performance of the Star-Spangled Banner at Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. And then, of course, at halftime, the Chargers will recognize 6 Vietnam War veterans as a remembrance of the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. The Chargers will also have wounded warriors as special guests and a patriotic fireworks show to wrap up halftime. Now, there's going to be a lot of patriotic stuff there. Before the game, a group of Navy SEALs plans to parachute down upon Qualcomm Stadium, and a Marine Corps band provides entertainment. All of this, and here we are in San Francisco sending a miserable, rotten, American-hating lout to sit out the American flag, the anthem, the American anthem. What can I say about it that I haven't said already? Nothing. If he hates the country so much, why doesn't he move to a country where he could make more than $100 million a year while spitting on their national anthem? How would they treat him in Uganda or Zaire or China or any other nation on earth if he did that, even in Brazil? Can you imagine a Brazilian sports soccer player not getting up for the national anthem of Brazil? I don't think they'd put up with it. They'd burn the stadium down. But here in America, because it's anti-American, all the vermin in the media saluting this lout. All right, I said that. I got it out of my system. I can move on. What else do I want to talk about? Here's an interesting, bizarre story from San Francisco. 2 from San Francisco. 1 from San Francisco specific and 1 from the area, okay? My headline, 666 San Francisco arrests cops who busted heroin dealer. Former SF officer sentenced to prison for illegal entry. You're not going to believe this story. A former SF police officer was sentenced to 14 months in federal prison for illegally entering a woman's hotel room during a drug search and then submitting a false report about the incident. This is the 4th cop to be put in prison for the crime. Do you know what the crime was? The officers entered a sleazebag ratty hotel on 6th Street, south of Market, a rundown, crappy SRO where drug deals are common. He goes into the room because he had a tip about heroin sales going on in this woman's room. He claims that he heard voices inside. He knocked on the door, announced their presence, and entered the occupants with the occupants' consent, he said, eliminating the need for a search warrant. They found the man inside, searched him, and found heroin in his pockets. But then the left-wing rats in this city who hate the flag, hate America, hate mother, hate father, hate the church, hate everything good about this country, the rats in San Francisco went and looked at the videotape in that Fleabag hotel, and guess what they found? Oh, the officers entered the Fleabag room without knocking. And so they got a shyster lawyer from somewhere in Berkeley, and they said, you violated her rights because you opened the door with a key. It doesn't matter that you found heroin. What matters, you violated the dirtbag's rights. Are you ready for this? The resident whose rights were violated then brought the case against her. And this rat public defender, Jeff Adachi, one of the worst left-wing slime bags to have ever gotten a law degree, brought the case against the police. Brought the case against the police because it was not a legitimate search. So guess what happened? 4 felonies against this cop. 4 felonies. The guy's been working as a cab driver since he was arrested. Now he's going to jail. The other 3 cops who risk their lives every day going into these slimeball hotels to stop the heroin trade, they all went to jail. This is the city that I live in. It's a city that is upside down. The dirtiest people wear the cleanest Brioni suits. The dirtiest, filthiest criminals wear the best clothing. 666 San Francisco arrests cops who bust the heroin dealer. Read it for yourself. Well, here's another story. If that's not enough to make your blood boil about how upside down the world is in this left-wing world that I live in. Here's a story from north of San Francisco in Marin County. Teacher smuggled heroin to killer on death row. It was an interesting story to me. I want to know how she got it in there. A Los Angeles teacher has been charged with smuggling heroin and cell phones to a San Quentin inmate on death row for 8 murders. Oh, innocent fellow. He only killed 8, you see. It was because of his oppression. He had an oppressed background, so he only killed 8 people in a bloodbath. Anyways, on death row, so this teacher, Terry Orena Nichols, goes into the prison to visit Bruce Millsap, and who was condemned in 2000 for a series of murders and robberies in Los Angeles, Orange, and San Bernardino counties. During the visit, a prison officer noticed plastic bags in the trash can of a visiting chamber occupied only by the prisoner and the visitor. And the bags were inconsistent with any packaging from snacks that were available from the vending machines. So the cops removed the perp, the prisoner, for a strip search. They found no contraband. Then the cops in the prison asked the visitor whether she would consent to a search. So she admits to bringing food in for the prisoner in the plastic bags. She also produced a large cloth beanie, under her clothing that contained 18 cell phones, 18 cell phone chargers, 2 identified blue pills, and about 3 ounces of heroin. The blue pills are obviously Viagra. I can't even imagine why he would need them in prison, but let's not go there, please. It's enough already with that one. So they booked the teacher who was visiting into Marin County Jail, released on bail. This morning, last Friday, the Marin County DA filed a felony charge of bringing heroin into prison and a misdemeanor charge of smuggling cell phones to an inmate. So now they're saying we're evaluating how she was successful in circumventing our security measures. Duh. Oh, that's easy. Just wave her through. You know what I'm saying? 8 cell phones, cell phone charges, and heroin. Yeah, just another mom visiting. How did she do this? Last week, the Los Angeles Times reported that the prison security procedures do not appear to be stopping the flow of illegal drugs into San Quentin. The newspaper reported that 6 death row inmates died between 2010 and 2015 with detectable levels of methamphetamines, heroin metabolites, or other drugs in their systems. The report also documented 8 non-fatal drug overdoses on death row during that period. Well, all I can say is maybe we can look into what drug cocktails they're using because all drugs to kill them are now illegal in California. Maybe this is not such a bad thing. Maybe we should let them smuggle drugs into death row. I mean, that's a side story. The real story here to me is, how did they get the drugs into the prison and the cell phones? Well, obviously, the first thing you'd say is they're smearing off a guard. Okay, they're just paying off a guard. It doesn't happen. I got an anonymous email on my Facebook account when I asked the question, who says a jail deputy once told me people hide contraband in their folds of fat or under their breasts if they hang down far enough. Sorry, Anthony. When an inmate goes through intake, they search their fat folds, but they don't search visitors in their fat folds. Did you hear that? So she could have been hiding it in her fat folds. 8 cell phones? I don't even want to think about that one, please. Have to be awfully large woman to hide 8 cell phones and 8 charges in your fat folds. Here's another one that came to me. He says, I have learned that any drug you can think of is available in prison. Sometimes guards get caught up in assisting smuggling by accident. They do a small favor for some inmate, and then the inmate threatens to expose the guard for that little favor unless he does another favor, and then another and another, and it builds on itself from there. Then the inmate has control of the guard, no payoff required. It's hard to figure out how cell phones could get through the metal detectors unless a guard made it happen. You hear this? But a few ounces of heroin is not so big and not metal, not that difficult to smuggle. We know where they smuggle it, where the sun don't shine. No smile necessary, Anthony. Those are 2 local stories on the Savage Nation. There's many other national stories coming up. And I will show you over and over again how we are down to the wire. That unless Trump wins, the corruption scandals that we have been living through under this gang that is running this country, cockeyed and every which way to the demise of the nation, cockeyed and upside down, lying about the economy, printing money, transferring funds, bringing in illegal voters, you name it, they do it, is nothing. It's chump change compared to what she will do if the most corrupt woman possible should seize control of the reins of this nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Directed the movie, I don't know. So the White House has put out their stooge, the head of the DHS, Jay Johnson, as a sock puppet of Obama, saying DHS should take charge of elections because it's critical infrastructure like the electrical grid. I couldn't believe my eyes. This is like worse than Brazil. This is a demon in the White House. You understand what a demon looks like? Forget the race already. Put it aside, moron. Can you put sex and race aside for 2 minutes? You got a demonic administration. Power mad at every level. Now, wait a minute. You think I'm alone and I'm a nut, right? The guy who runs WikiLeaks, who was attacked left, right, every country on earth when he finds corruption, they're real journalists, unlike the stooge morons in America. The head of WikiLeaks gave an interview from his hiding place in the Ecuadorian place over there in London. He says reporters are erecting a demon by protecting Hillary Clinton. Erecting a demon by protecting Hillary Clinton. Did you hear that? Whistleblower Assange says the reporters in America are erecting a demon by protecting Hillary Clinton, shielding her from criticism. He took part in an hour-long interview with the New York Times on Facebook Live to discuss his role in influencing the 2016 presidential election. So he has been in hiding to avoid extradition to Sweden for 5 years because they will burn him if they get him in Sweden. They'll make sure he never, ever sees the light of day. He said this: the American liberal press, in falling over themselves to defend Hillary Clinton, are erecting a demon that is going to put nooses around everyone's necks as soon as she wins the election, which is almost certainly what she's going to do, Mr. Assange said. Are you listening to this? So then the New York Times pushes Assange on his own potential biases, and then he says, WikiLeaks has enormous range, which is not highlighted in the liberal news. He says his organization has exposed high-level corruption in numerous countries via the release of 10 million documents, including money laundering schemes and the oil money mill in Russia. Did you hear this? But he says, we don't target the West. We are an investigative publisher, Mr. Assange said. We also represent the whistleblowers who want to speak to the public like a lawyer to the greatest court in the world, the court of public opinion. We don't target anyone. He is warning you, you undecided people in the middle, that the reporters for protecting her, the reporters, the American liberal press in particular, are, quote, erecting a demon that is going to put nooses around everyone's neck as soon as she wins the election. This is a chilling statement coming from him. I don't know what it's going to take to awaken liberals. I don't think they can be awakened. Their minds are made up. Now, speaking of Hillary Clinton, I was thinking of fossils as a result of this. A 3.7-year-old fossil was found in America. I know many of you devout Christians are going to go crazy right now and reach for the Bible and say that it was produced by liberal scientists who hate God, but sorry, there is science and there is God. They're not exclusive, they're not mutually exclusive either. Scientists have found the oldest known remnant of life, a fossil dating back a staggering 3.7 billion years. If confirmed, this would support the theory that life took root in just a blink of an eye after the planet's birth. The newfound remains consist of a layer of rock that to the untutored eye looks like a rock, but it's actually a mineral structure created by the busy work of countless microbes. And these microbes thrived in a shallow sea, bathing a still young and fresh earth, according to a study in this week's Nature. What does it have to do with you? Well, it has a lot to do with you. Many people will say, well, you see, this proves there is no God. Others will say this proves there is God. And we can go into this God question. I've done it before. I love this question. Because I once had a rabbi call this show when I was doing this, where I said, you don't have to disbelieve in science to believe in God. Because most people don't even understand that science could support the existence of God. And the rabbi called and he said, well, of course it supports that God's here. I said, how? I said, if it says in the Bible, God created the earth in 6 days and on the seventh he rested. How could it be that earth had life starting 3.7 billion years ago? And the rabbi, who's smart as can be, said to me, because time to us is not the same as time to God. And what is a day to us could be a billion years to God. You see? So when the Bible says he created in 6th and 7th he rested, there could be 7 billion years right there. Oh, I love the Jewish mind when it's so smart.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
And get the Savage notes from someone in front of you. Let's see where I begin. Jay Johnson of DHS wants to take over the election, saying it's critical infrastructure like the electrical grid. Unheard of, but we'll go past that. Scorched Earth has moved up to number 2 in politics on Amazon. Thank you very much for doing that. Also, thank you for making the Savage Nation show the most popular on WABC in New York City and many other stations in America. I then asked you, which Hillary scandal do you think is most damaging? Clinton Foundation, email, Benghazi, hiding health records. I want to move on from that, though, because towards the end of the hour, I read a story about a 3.7 billion-year-old fossil that was discovered, the oldest known remnant of life. And a fossil dating back 3.7 billion years. Now, I told the guys when I found this story this morning before the show that religionists who don't believe in evolution were going to call the show, and they're just jamming up the lines right now to say they don't believe in it. And I try to explain to you, as a trained PhD-level scientist from a great university with a real doctorate, not one from a crackerjack box, there is science. It does work. There are actually fields of science that have made our lives what they are today, real fields of science. Geology, hydrology, geophysics, atmospheric science, oceanography, paleoclimatology, biomedicine, so many fields of real science. And, of course, without the geniuses who have given the building blocks of these sciences, we wouldn't have what we have today. And one of the building blocks of science is a method called radiocarbon dating. And the man who discovered this was the American physical chemist Willard Libby, who led a team of scientists in the post-World War II era who developed a method that measures radiocarbon activity. And I'm not going to explain it in great detail. We've all heard about carbon dating, and that's what this is. I can explain it if you want, but I don't need to. The limitations on carbon dating, by the way, is about 50,000 years, incidentally. So it does not apply to the 3.7 billion-year-old fossil, which was dated in another way. And I don't want to explain that. That's not the point. The bigger point is the bigger point. And the bigger point is that there is no disparity between believing in God and believing in science. You don't have to reject science to believe in God, and you don't have to reject God if you're a scientist. In fact, in the later years of his life, as I've said numerous times on this program over the 20 years, Albert Einstein said that the older he got and the closer he came to his end on this earth, the more he studied, by the way, the outer perimeters of the universe, the more he knew there was a creator. He said that. And I love the hippie picture of Einstein on all the college campuses, the guy with the wild hair and the tongue sticking out like he was a pothead. He was not a pothead at all, okay? But the fact is that, of course, it was picked up by the pot culture to make it look like he was a wild, crazy guy who was on drugs. The furthest from the truth. No, he was not a wild, crazy guy on drugs. Straight out cold genius. So he saw into things that most of us can't see, myself included. And I rely upon those who can see that far into the worlds that I can't see to guide me and help me see into the worlds that I can see. They inspire me. And that's why I have such contempt for the American media and such contempt for thugs like those in Black Lives Matter who have given nothing to this society or the world. Garbage. Nothing but violence and garbage and lies and hatred. And here's your president. Instead of inviting a geophysicist to the White House and celebrating him, he picks up street thugs, armed revolutionary thugs, and brings them into the White House and tells you that they're wholesome and they're good for America. This is what you're living through now. A radical leftist revolution right in front of your eyes. But I led it into that when I was talking about the fact that the first female president of Brazil was impeached today, thrown out of office for corruption. And I showed you that what she did is akin, not identical, but akin to what Barry has been doing from the day he seized power in the White House. The corruption is overwhelming. And these are all the stories we've been touching on. 855-407-282. It's hour 2. It's on a Wednesday before Labor Day. It's the cusp day of the week. Wednesday, is today Wednesday, Robert? It's Wednesday already. Last Wednesday I needed a day off. Like at this time last week I was in the museum looking at paintings, and then I immediately went downstairs and I had 2 beers. So one of the reasons I go to the museum is there's a great... anyway, I enjoy myself when I take the day off. Then I had a corned beef sandwich, which I eat once a year in some a dive somewhere in San Francisco in a dark booth with no one around me, violating my diet. And then I had a nice night. I went to a club, had dinner. They served the food wrongly again. I'll try it again tonight. I'll go for 3 out of 3. Once I said no pepper. I got peppercorns on the steak. Next I said, well done. It came out uncooked, the fish. I won't eat pinworm fish, by the way. But I'm working today. I should not go into my talking about food. I love it because I'm food obsessed. I'm known as the food guy to my dogs and to everyone around me. Do you know anyone who's not food obsessed? How can you live without being food obsessed? You wind up eating McDonald's or trash. If you're an idiot, you wind up eating fast food like a moron. I mean, of course you have to be food obsessed in a world filled with toxic foods. That's why I studied the field for so many years and wrote books about it, in order to make sure that I lived as long as I possibly could with as few diseases as possible. Well, what do you think I studied it for? For esoteric reasons? So having said all of that stuff, here we are. I know it's a political age, and all you want to hear about is Hillary and Bill and, you know, this, the Clinton thing, and Trump's in Mexico. We'll get back to that. We don't have to do that right now. I got callers now that I want to go to because these are good ones. Line 1 in New York. Joseph is on WABC where their show is king. Joseph, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Michael. As a retired astrophysicist, I can actually tell you that science brought me to God rather than removing me from God, as many scientists occurred. Now, for people to make an argument that, now that we found the fossil this early in Earth's history, how one can say that's not proof that there is a God. I mean, there really is no evolutionary period or time for these fossils to come up that early in Earth's history. It seems more and more that science points to creation rather than a long process of evolution, although I'm not saying evolution doesn't exist.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. In other words, I got it. That's what this seems to prove to you as a retired astrophysicist. Joseph, what is an astrophysicist? What does that mean to the average person? What did you do? What did you do?
Well, I was a professor, so I taught astrophysics. And
but what is the field? I understand that, but what does that mean? What does that subject entail?
Well, one of my main studies, what I taught, was astronomy. And one of my main topics was Venus, and interesting enough, the greenhouse theories of Venus and how it wasn't really a greenhouse. That was one of my main studies as an astrophysicist. But the one
okay, I'll make it political. I don't know you. You don't know me. You could be a progressive for all I know, and I'm not putting you a litmus test. Do you believe that there's a fabrication? Do you believe that global warming, as I do, is a fabrication?
Absolutely. Not even a question.
Okay, so it's all a scam. It's a monetary scam put out by the same forces that are trying to steal our democracy.
Doctor, most of these people couldn't tell you the difference between shortwave and long-wave radiation, and they can't.
and they all quote carbon dioxide, but they don't even know what it looks like.
Well, you know what the carbon dioxide, the carbon levels right now are at 400 ppm. That we're actually CO2 starved. During the Cambrian period, where we saw the largest explosion of life on Earth, CO2 levels are at 7,000 ppm.
Oh, when we were growing, those prehistoric forests were growing, rather?
Well, it is true. Most of the Cambrian life was in the ocean. Still, the CO2 levels were massive, and the sun was actually, a percentage weaker at that time. But
yeah, well, let's explain to the average person what children learn in the 5th grade. At least they did before they were taught Jenny has 2 mommies in science. What children were taught in my day what were the basics in the 5th grade, not Jenny has 2 mommies or how to put a condom on a cucumber. We were taught the difference between plants and animals. Man consumed oxygen and breathed out carbon dioxide. And in basic terms, plants needed carbon dioxide to grow. It was a brilliant idea. We loved it. We understood how the world worked. Now you got the morons saying we don't need carbon dioxide. They don't even know what they're saying.
My first year of high school, it was very easy to prove that a plant would grow much healthier with more CO2. I mean, I don't have to tell you that.
But Joseph, is that why all of the people in New York used seltzer in my day?
Well, Doctor, if people, the whole global warming thing was really, it really is insidious because it started with Carl Sagan. And Carl Sagan's theory on the greenhouse effect on Venus was wrong. But
it was Sagan who started this whole thing?
He started the whole runaway greenhouse effect on Venus.
It was Sagan, the Sagan the Great.
Because Carl Sagan's assumption was that there was a high vapor count on Venus, but guess what? It's only 0.02%. So basically, the only vapor that exists, that we know of ever existed on Venus, is CO2 freezing out at incredibly cold temperatures in the highest parts of the atmosphere.
Dr. Joseph, a question for you. Do you see the world as dire as I do under Obama?
Well, it's nightmarish, Doctor, because it's very easy to convince people that global warming is real, that they're not really lying to us, because our educational system's so horrible. I actually had to retire because being an individual who didn't believe in global warming anymore, I was tormented.
Oh my God! Oh, so you faced the blacklist of the illegitimate progressives.
Well, every time I walked into the faculty lounge, I felt like Michael Corleone driving up to what's his name's house in Miami. You know.
Well, how about Michael Savage walking into a restaurant in San Francisco, ruined by the Progs who wear nice Brioni suits and steal the treasury blindly? Joseph, we're running short of time. This is what I love about the show. When I go into these topics, I get the callers who are out there. We never hear from them. And I want to thank you very much for calling. I'm sending you a fresh copy of Scorched Earth. You should get it right after Labor Day. I'm sure you're going to love it. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Don't ask me the story of how I got it. I was poor. Don't ask. And the headlight is taped over, and I say to myself, what is that AC Bristol worth today? I went on the internet. It's just worth $375,000. I mean, the thing was a wreck. It was a great car. But it brings me back to the whole subject at hand, all the subjects at hand. You know, we're talking about science, evolution, politics. How do you apply rationality to making a decision in politics? And just know this, there is science out there. And whether you're a guy who fixes cars, you know that it's based upon metallurgy, the knowledge of metallurgy. Let's say you have a car that has vibration in the crankshaft. Well, it's all based upon science that you even know what the crankshaft is and what vibration is, right? So there's science in everything you do. And so you can't say, well, there's no science when it comes to things. There's science when it comes to politics, too. I have always tried to apply a scientific analysis to my decisions in politics. Do you understand where I'm coming from? When I was young and stupid and knew nothing, I was a liberal. I was a social worker. I was a welfare worker. I thought I should help the poor. Worked on New York's Upper West Side. People don't know that. I was a nice kid. I wanted to help the poor. And then I came home. Here I was, a college graduate. I was making $5,600 a year. I slept on a mattress on the floor with no furniture. Out in Queens, I couldn't live in Manhattan. What else is new? And I would go to these apartments in this, at the time, the Upper West Side. They used to be beautiful, and then they fell into this disrepair. And they were filled with the welfare bums living off the government. And it was called the New York Department of Welfare that I worked for at the time. Now it's something else, like Health and Human Services. Yeah, it's not welfare. No, here's your Health and Human Services check. Now go spend it on crack or go to the racetrack with it. But the thing is, so he was this liberal kid going and giving them the investigation and the checks. I wrote a play about it called Mr. Investigator, by the way. It's very funny. I think I should do the play one day. Maybe that's what I'll do in 2016 when the election's over. I'll start doing stuff that I've always dreamed of doing. Put on like a one-act play in a little theater or whatever. But it was about this guy, this young college grad who is a starry-eyed liberal, goes and helps the people he thinks, and then he finds out that they're living better than him. I had to go. I remember to this day. I'm laying on the floor on a mattress, mind you. My bookends, my end tables were crates, orange crates. I couldn't afford to buy tables, if you could believe it in those days. Now, everyone has everything. Car, phone, TV, you name it. If you don't have it, you're a racist, I guess. Or the evil racist government. Ask the football player. After all, he only makes $100 million a year. I guess if it wasn't a racist nation, he'd make $1 billion a year. You know, that's what's really wrong, is because of racism, he only makes $100 million a year. That's why it's such a racist pig society. So anyway, how did it come? I go into the welfare guy and come back to my supervisor, New York City Department of Welfare, and she says, okay, get out your calculator. Now write down, she says, $120 for a sofa, $80 for each end table. Then in the bedroom, we need a bed, 2 end tables, 2 lamps. Put down whatever, $556. Then we'll go in the kitchen. I said, wait a minute, what do you mean they're entitled to a... I said, I'm sleeping on a mattress. She said, oh, no, she said to me. The welfare recipient must live like a decent human being, and the welfare recipient must have a sofa and 2 tables and a bed and 2 this and that. I had to write out a check for $1,500 from the New York City Department of Welfare, as I'm telling you, around $1,500, and give it to the welfare bum to buy furniture. You hear this? As I schlepped home on the subway, the E-train, wearing a dirty raincoat with a tuna fish stain on my Brooks Brothers raincoat, to go home and sleep on a mattress on the floor. That's the day I began to become an American who understood what was going on in this country. It was a very slow evolution. Trust me on that. If you're not a liberal at 20, you have no heart. If you're a liberal at 40, you have no brain. Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE.
Having a secure border is a sovereign right and mutually beneficial. We recognize and respect the right of either country to build a physical barrier or wall on any of its borders to stop the illegal movement of people, drugs, and weapons. Cooperation toward achieving this shared objective, and it will be shared, of safety for all citizens is paramount to both the United States and to Mexico.
Donald Trump live just a few minutes ago in Mexico. Wouldn't it be great if he wins and we have this country back again and all these progressives are thrown into the dustbin of history with all the other rubbish of the past? Now, he gave that speech in Mexico. He's going to build a barrier, a wall. He just said it, to the benefit of both nations. Look, many of you are ignorant about Mexico itself. They have some of the toughest border controls in the world. Did you know that? Ask any Guatemalan or El Salvadoran what it's like to get into Mexico, what happens to them if they should illegally enter that nation. You people are so naive to think that we should live in a borderless world. The only people who want that are the gangsters, the human traffickers, those bringing in drugs, contraband, those who make money by manipulating currencies like George Soros, in my opinion. It's astonishing that you can't see right through this. It's a no-brainer. We need a border. He's the only one who's going to do it. What, she's going to do it? She's going to do it? She wants to flood America with the refuse of the world, with no border controls. So there's your choice right then and there. My friends, we have a lot to face in this coming election, as you know, but I'm not going to get trapped in talking about it 3 hours a day until the election, okay? So we come and go into the topic. And there you have it from Mexico itself, Donald Trump. Donald Trump himself. Of course we need borders. Of course we need a language that's common to the nation. That's the glue that holds the nation together. How is it that in Mexico, for example, the common language is Spanish? How come they know they need a common language? How come they don't invite people in who speak Urdu into the government? How come in Mexico they have the brains to understand that a nation is held together by its borders, language, and culture? How come they know that and we don't know that? All these progressives who hold up Mexico and Mexicans as some great thing. Well, then why don't you copy Mexico and the Mexican way of life? They have a national pride. They have a flag that they die for. They wouldn't put up with this Pipik neck, whatever his name is. I can't remember it. Paper neck. They wouldn't tolerate it at a Mexican soccer game if the equivalent of the paper neck got up there and wouldn't stand up for the salute. They'd burn the stadium down. And the team would let this guy know, goodbye, you're gone. Because the fans, they expect you to support the country that they are in. But not here in 666 San Francisco, where everything is upside down, where they arrest cops who bust a heroin dealer because they didn't knock on a door properly with the proper warrant from a rotten judge. It's unbelievable to me. They found the heroin, by the way, in the Sleazebag Hotel. But they did it without a judge's approval. So 4 cops are in prison. An upside-down world, believe me. The progressive world is a world of corruption and danger. So this morning I wake up and I see a puff piece by Politico. As you know, it's an arm of the Obama-Clinton machine. Always was, always has been. Tied deeply into the Democrat slime machine. And this guy, Howard Schweitzer, writes an article. 7 reasons Trump would hate being president. So I read it. I mean, I read the other side. I'm not a biased guy. I have an opinion. It's based upon an analysis. And my analysis is, okay, 7 reasons Trump would hate being president. So I said, what if we apply the below to the Frankenstein in the White House now? So here's what they say. As someone who has never worked in Washington, never obtained a security clearance, never received an ethics briefing, and never assembled a team of experienced policy aides, Donald Trump would be in for the shock of his life when he realizes how hard and different it is running a government from running a private business. And here are 7 reasons why, according to the Politico geniuses, why Trump would hate being president. 1, you're never fired. The federal bureaucracy is in the Trump organization. You can't indiscriminately fire civil servants on the spot if they're incompetent. Really, but in the Obama administration, you can fire anyone who doesn't go along with your gender insanity. They'll throw you right out on your ear, whether you have civil service or not. They fire you in a second. 2, Congress will drive Trump insane. Big promises like a sizable tax cut plan, replacing Obamacare, tearing up trade deals, even building a giant wall on the border, will have to go through a hostile Congress. Really, Mr. Politico? Hey, Schweitzer, the above didn't seem to stop your hero, B.O., did it? He hasn't gone through a hostile Congress to flood America with illegal aliens, print money like he owns the economy, etc., and so on. Howie? Hey, Schweitzer, where did you grow up, Schweitzer? Here's a little bit more for you. He'll be investigated to death. Trump should expect to be barraged by congressional investigations into his extensive business affairs, relationships with foreign leaders, and anything else Congress decides is in the public interest. Howie, how come they haven't applied that to B.O. or to Hillary Clinton? Howie? Next, the judges will relentlessly question Trump's executive orders. They're not going to refuse me, believe me. Really? So they say this will lead to litigation and ultimately review by the Supreme Court, says Howie Schweitzer of Politico. Hey, Howie, how come the judges haven't relentlessly questioned B.O.'s executive orders, Howie? Next, and so forth and so on. You want a little bit more? Here's the last one. He will not be able to take the demands of Healer-in-Chief, says Howie Schweitzer of Politico. They write, the president is called upon during times of great tragedy, domestic and international, to be a humanitarian and an empathizing healer. After the mass shootings in Orlando and Dallas, he was quick to politicize the issue and avoided all but the most token expressions of empathy. Howie, how about B.O.'s lack of empathy? How about B.O.'s golfing right after these events, Howie? How about B.O. golfing right after the Islamic slaughters in Boston, Orlando, San Bernardino, and Dallas, Howie? How about the war on police as cops lay buried and are going into the ground? How come there's no call from men like you, Howie? How come, Howie? The answer is because you're nothing but a low-life propagandist, along with the entire instrument called Politico, which would have been very happy indeed in the ex-Soviet Union, Howie, where you belong. Now let's go to the callers. They are calling only about one thing. Did I go through all of my stuff? Colin Puppernick? Colin, right? No, I call him Colin because it more clearly exemplifies the portion of the human body that he resembles. In fact, if it was not a family show, I would not call him Colin Puppernick. I call him something else, which approximates closer to the part of the human body that he resembles to me. Evolution now. All right, KSFO. Nigel, you're an atheist. You're on the Savage Nation. You've got the floor. Fire away.
Yes, Mr. Savage, I am an atheist, but the one thing is I'm also a conservative, and I'm not a jerk of an atheist. I don't yell at people because they're Christians. I don't put them down. I believe that as long as you're not strapping a bomb to yourself and running into a school, your religion is fine with me. But so if I did believe in God in the traditional sense, I would believe that he would have put us here, he or she or it would have put us here to evolve as a species, kind of like children do. And if I was to equate that to how we are right now as a species, I believe that we're adolescents because, I mean, look at us. We throw fits. Yes, we've accomplished great deals, and that's the power of mankind. We have so much power in our minds and creativity.
Yeah, but wait. I'm not arguing with you, but let's start with a few things you said. Wouldn't you say that mankind has achieved greatness as well?
Yes, sir. Some of the things...
Look at the advances in medicine from certain segments of the human population. Wouldn't you say that's an advancement of the species compared to how people were treated medically 100 years ago?
Well, if you look at our life span expectancies now, they've almost doubled since certain times. I mean, people were expecting...
How come Muslims have such a low rate of winning Nobel Prizes? How come there's almost no contributions to human civilization from Muslims? Why is that? You want to analyze this? I'll help you with it. Because religions do shape a person's worldview. And, by the way, Christians hold the largest number of Nobel Prizes. Why is that? Because Christianity is a religion that advances the human soul.
And I believe that. I believe that some of the greatest advances. I mean, how do you expect someone to make any type of contribution to mankind when they haven't gone past the 7th century? When they still believe.
Well, so why is your president bringing in throwbacks from the 7th century as fast as he can?
President, Mr. Savage, he is not my president. I have never.
I wanted to put the thermometer in the turkey. That's all. I wanted to see what the temperature was.
Yeah, I warned people about this man 8 years ago, and they all called me a racist. They all said I was crazy, wacko, lunatic. Oh, you just don't like him because he's black. I said, no, I don't like him because he's a socialist. And they go, oh, he's not a socialist. 8 years later, and I mean, and also what makes
not only a socialist but a corrupt, evil one. Add a few more adjectives to it. The man is a corrupt, evil one, but he's so silk smooth in his lies that he gets away with it by never yelling, never screaming, and selling it. He's just a good salesman of the most evil things on earth. Did you see the story I started with in the last hour? I didn't even play the sound. His stooge, Jay Johnson of DHS, wants to declare the elections part of the critical infrastructure of America and take control of our elections. Did you hear that story?
That scares me to no end. It means that the government...
And he says it with such aplomb, you would think he was talking about buying a pastrami sandwich. Hold it. Stay on the line. Here is Obama's stooge, the head of DHS, the man who failed us at every turn. He wants a special declaration to take charge of elections. Listen to this clip, and listen very carefully, you progs.
The election process contributes to... There's a vital national interest in our election process. So I do think we need to consider whether it should be considered by my department and others critical infrastructure, which has several implications. It becomes very much part of our focus.
So Obama, the genius, called a stooge in, Jay Johnson, the puppet, and he gave him the speech. Jay Johnson hardly understood it, but he remembered some of it. He got the broad points written out for him. And he says, well, our election system is like critical infrastructure, like the power grid, so therefore I want to take control of it. If this was said in a South American nation, what would you say about a South American nation where the election itself would be taken over by a stooge of a government? What would you be saying today, all you progs who think you're so advanced and you think that we conservatives are such Neanderthals? What would you be saying if you heard such a speech coming out of Uruguay? I know what you'd be saying if it was in Uruguay, but you can't see two and two. You can't put two and two together. This shows you how distorted your mind has become. There's a statement that was written, a one-liner out of a Blake poem, to try to appeal to you through literature. Many of you read Blake. You're old hippies. You use psychedelics. And you remember reading things from Blake. He was very popular in the 60s. Because you thought he was writing about using drugs when he wasn't. There were no drugs in his time. But he was a seer who did it on the natch. But you thought it was an excuse to take magic mushrooms on Mount Tamalpais or whatever. Or go lay in the desert like a pig with Burning Man and schmucks. Morons lay in the mud there. Morons. Burning Man. A bunch of lowlifes. So what Blake wrote was many things. If you're something with reality, you'll see life as, if you cleanse the doors of perception, you will see life as it is, infinite. That was one of the things he said. So people thought that was an excuse to use mescaline. It wasn't. It was meant clean your head up, baby. Start to see things the way people who believe in God see them. Basically, he was a God-believing man. They twisted the whole thing and used it to peddle drugs. But there were other elements of this story that I'm trying to tell you. Why can't you see what's going on in front of your own eyes here in this country? Because he sells himself as a progressive who's for the environment while lying about the environment, while his friends make billions of dollars on fake environmental projects along the lines of what just went on in Brazil, where they threw her out of office because of the corruption. It's unbelievable to me. But look, I can't teach it all to you in 1 second. It's an evolutionary process growing up politically. It's very easy to grow up and say, oh, I'm a liberal and I'm proud of it. Oh, I live in Berkeley. I'm a liberal. I'm proud of it. I've seen people like that. Oh, I'm a liberal. I don't like those conservatives. I hate Trump. I have a medical degree. I've met schmucks like that who robbed the drugs out of the medicine cabinet. That's why they became doctors. I know who they are. Went back to medical school just to get the drugs. Oh, I'm a doctor from Berkeley. I have an MD and I'm a progressive. Nothing, no evolution. This is not an uneducated voter. This is a man who won't even think. He refuses to engage his mind.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Someone's come along who's going to save this country. What's the option? What is the alternative? The Hague? The corrupt Hague? Are you people nuts? Why would you want open borders? You want more drugs, I guess. If you live in San Francisco, you want more drugs, you want more cheap labor. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. Of course, if you live in San Francisco, you want more ignoramuses who don't speak English, so you can rob the Treasury and then tell them that you're for them. I forgot, I wasn't thinking. You can wear a Brioni suit, and you get up in the BS the public, tell them you're for them, and everyone else against them, and rob them blind, that's all, and let them go wash dishes. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. Here is Trump in Mexico on the White Horse, the George Washington of our time, giving the speech of a lifetime right in front of your eyes. Is it any wonder that the evil manipulator in the White House, the Frankenstein called Obama, takes his stooge, Jay Johnson from DHS, who says, I want a special declaration to take charge of elections in this country. They're afraid he's going to win. And they know that if he wins, they're liable to go to prison for what they've done to this country for these last 8 years. Oh, yes, think about it. There have been a lot of crimes, but no punishment. A lot of crimes, but no punishment. Thanks for making this show number one in New York on WABC and making Scorched Earth number 2 in politics on Amazon.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Times poll, Trump 45.3, Clinton 41.9. How is that possible? You mean people are slowly awakening, even the LA Times poll? Here he is in Mexico. She calls it a stunt. It's like the speech of our life. Stop the illegals, build the wall, it'll be better for both nations. And by the way, Mexico will benefit from it. Did you figure that out yet? Did you figure out that Mexico would benefit from a more secure America? Can you imagine if the DEA is actually functional again? And the scourge of drugs is stopped on the streets of America? And ask yourself why Progs want more drugs and more people hooked. Ask yourself why anybody would want that for a nation. And then he put out a memo how they'll pay for it. And it's not the same memo as that Hillary Nahuma just knock on the door to the bedroom if it's closed. That came up in a hidden email. That's not the memo they found from Trump. Trump's memo didn't say just knock on the door to the bedroom if it's closed. No. Trump's memo says how they'll pay for it. How he would force Mexico to pay for border wall. America is listening. The world is listening. It's not just white people listening anymore. I've told you this 6 months ago when I was so strongly in favor of Trump right from the beginning. I told you that the Latino or Hispanic male is not voting for that woman for a number of reasons. Because she's underestimating their intelligence, number one. They can think for themselves. And number two, they come from a macho culture. They don't like women bossing them around. And number three, they want to make it in America. They want to be like Donald Trump, not like Hillary Clinton. Now, just put two and two together. If you're an immigrant who's coming here, whatever you're doing, working hard, who would you rather be like after a number of years in this country, or your son? Donald Trump or like Hillary Clinton with a fraudulent foundation? Or somebody who's actually built things in the country with his name on it? So think about it. That's from the Hispanic point of view. Now you have this vast black middle class. They're going to vote for someone who wants an increased welfare state? They'll take away from them everything that they earned in their life? I don't think so. Or the Christian blacks. They don't like Hillary. They know she's an atheist. They know it through and through. And they know that she'll be very, very bad for the God world. and the opposite is true for Trump. And that's why they're flocking to him. I think he can pull it off. Now, there's a lot of obstacles. We know that. I want to go into the obstacles. I'd rather stick to the positives. But I want to go back to what they're planning if he should pull an upset. Here's Jay Johnson, the stooge of Obama, the man who runs DHS, who should have been fired after, well, let's see. Let's run back together. San Bernardino, he failed us. Orlando slaughter, he failed us. How many other times did the head of the DHS fail us? And yet here he is, gets up, and he wants a special declaration to take control of our elections. He says it's like the power grid, and he wants to control it at DHS. Listen to this. You're not going to believe it. If it was in a third world nation, you'd understand how seriously this gang that has taken over this country is out of control.
The election process contributes to, there is a vital national interest in our election process. So I do think we need to consider whether it should be considered by my department and others critical infrastructure, which has several implications. It becomes very much part of our focus.
Meaning they want to take control of the elections. Voting machines, who votes. He could hardly get it out of his mouth because he didn't memorize it well enough. He couldn't even spit out what they put in his head. So that's that. White House admits they have no solution for high homicide rate in Chicago. No kidding. White House refuses to comment on FBI releasing report on Clinton email investigations. What else is in the news? I think we forgot the football player already. We don't want to hear what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has to say. We could do without him. Let him go to MSNBC. Here's Obama's former doctor saying Clinton should have a neurological exam. This was a shocker to me. This is Obama's former doctor. I guess now he's considered a Nazi and a Ku Klux Klan member. Obama's former doctor says Clinton should have a neurological exam. Listen.
I think she should have had a neurological examination, a thorough neurological examination in 2016. We know what happens to football players who have had concussions, how they begin to lose some of their cognitive ability. I think both of them should release their records.
That's it. David Shiner's now finished. He spoke the truth, the true doctor. That's like a scientist who speaks out against the fraud of global warming, thrown out of the academy, cast out of the academy. Now here's another one for those of you interested in gender issues. That's all we hear all day and night. Gender, sex obsessed, gender obsessed. Here's the Department of Justice video on how to deal with transgenders. Let's listen to it because we need a little comedic break from reality. And now let's listen to the lunatic women who run the DOJ in clip 23.
You may hear the term transgender male or transgender female. Now, simply put, these terms refer to transgender individuals and describe the gender they are presenting and or transitioning to. You may also see or hear the terms male to female, or M to F, or female to male, F to M. They mean exactly what they say. It identifies a transgender individual by stating to which gender they are presenting and or transitioning. The term trans is often used by some as shorthand to refer to transgender individuals or, by and large, the transgender community. While it may be acceptable to some, the safest term to use is the entire word transgender. When in doubt, it's always best to ask an individual what their preference is. Just simply ask, how would you like to be addressed? Using the correct or preferred pronouns demonstrates respect and lets the individual know that you're knowledgeable about their community, which is both reassuring and shows you're a true professional.
You hear this? The country's being overrun by drug dealers, drug smugglers, gangsters, terrorists, and these schmucks in the Justice Department put out a video on how to deal with transgendered individuals. A world gone mad. A world that is upside down. Now let's go to the rest of the stupidity coming out of Obama's Justice Department in 24.
Every person has an internal psychological gender identity, a sense of who they feel they are in terms of gender, even if it's not consistent with their assigned sex. Gender identity is best viewed as a broad spectrum, with stereotypical masculine male being at one end and stereotypical feminine female being at the other end.
Freak if you're a
Some people identify at many points along that spectrum.
Listen, so now you're a freak. Listen, they made you into an anomaly if you're a stereotypical female, or if you're a stereotypical masculine male, you're now an anomaly to the freaks inside the Department of Justice. It's astonishing to me. They're making it sound like everyone is transgendered except for a few stereotypical freaks who are women and men. This is so... Oh, God, I wish Trump were president. I wish we could put these people back where they belong. But okay, my friends, we all have a wish list, don't we? We all have a wish list instead of a witch list. And I make sure I'm not on a watch list. Because at the end of the day, that's the most dangerous place to be, is not on the witch list, but the watch list. This other sound I haven't gotten to yet, for those of you who stick around for the third hour of the Savage Nation, we get to the sound. There's another one from the Department of Justice, not on drugs being smuggled in, devastating our communities, not on terrorists coming in from Africa through Mexico, no. Not on guns being smuggled, no. It's about, again, gender issues coming out of the psychopath that runs the DOJ. He's 25 now.
Assigned sex is also known as birth sex. It refers to the biological or physiological designation as male or female at birth.
Hold it, stop.
Usually based on
let me follow. It's so complicated. Hold on. Let me see if I can follow this, boys and girls. Birth sex refers to the biological or physiological designation as male or female at birth, which is usually based on anatomy. So if your little boy has a you-know-what, that's what we're talking about. If your little girl, on the other hand, has a yoni, we know what we're talking about. But they are the stereotypical human beings. They're not the special human beings of the kind that the Obama administration is so obsessed with for reasons I could not understand. Nobody wants to hurt these people. Nobody wants to mock these people. But at this stage of human development, I don't need a lecture on what a boy is or what a girl is. Okay? And moreover, I think that there are much more important issues for the Department of Justice than how several transgenders may feel about you addressing them in the wrong manner. I would much rather they address the flow of drugs coming from Mexico. I'd much rather they address the 10,000 Syrian Muslim refugees that the gangster just forced onto this nation, paralegally, by the way, without the power of law or without the power of Congress. He just did it. I'd much rather see that being addressed by a Department of Justice, as I think we will see if Trump wins and he appoints a real Attorney General of the United States of America.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. The U.S. punks deny it, of course. They're interested in transgendered pilots right now. They're not interested in destroying ISIS. They're interested in how they can integrate the transgendered into the Air Force or onto submarines. That's a far more important issue than stopping young children from being taught to execute prisoners or old men. There's a picture of the old men now. Gray-haired ISIS fanatics execute prisoners days after terror group turns boys into killers. The picture should make you puke. You're watching genocide in your lifetime. They're capturing people, and they're executing them or boiling them alive. And not a word from the Frankenstein in the White House. Not a word from Frankenstein Jr. in DHS. Not a word from the corrupt hag who would like to be president about ISIS. She won't even say Islamic State. It's a no-brainer to me what we need to save this nation. So he's in Mexico, the savior of the United States of America and maybe the whole world. That would be... You want to run through this. I mean, you want to write a fictional account of what would happen? If Trump pulls off the upset victory, and if Trump wins, despite all the screaming and yelling, he builds the wall, he starts the deportation of the prisoners in our prisons, and the bad people, in other words. He's never going to deport the workers. You know that, and I know that. That'll never happen. But he will deport the prisoners because they are already incarcerated. It's very easy to deport them. And the drugs start to dry up. And then the flow of weapons going from north to south starts to dry up. The flow of Muslims coming into America dries up because they're not going to come through Mexico anymore, for example. And we're not going to have a president seeking out such individuals. All of a sudden, all of the nationalist parties in Europe are emboldened. And you see the same things happening across Europe. And you see criminals like George Soros hunted down for the gangsters that they are, in my opinion. Hunted down and chased to the ends of the earth and held accountable for the crimes against nations that they have conducted, in my estimation. I've studied this in such great detail, it's unbelievable if I ever disclose to you, but it's too much of a burden for you to hear it, so I won't do it. It's all in Scorched Earth, by the way. Again, I'll tell you, you can pre-order it by going to scorchedearthbook@gmail.com, and you're going to get a special 2011 Trump interview. It's a big deal. You can't get it any other way. You're going to buy the book anyway, so buy it now. That's all, on Amazon. But it's in there. I have all of this in there. And it's my last great book of this type. You're saying, you're just saying it. Come next year, they give you a big advance, you'll do another one. Nope, will not. If I ever told you what I have in mind, I'm going to shift gears now. I don't know if I should tell you what I have in mind. I'm not talking about my early fiction or poetry or writings. I'm not going to do that. That's something else. I will do it, but that's not the big book. I have another big book in mind. I'll tell you what it's about. The area. I'm not going to give another idea away so somebody can cash in on it. After Scorched Earth and after the election, when things settle down, maybe, God willing, a year from now, if I'm still up to it and doing good and feel great and nothing horrible has happened, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to finally write a book about God. I know many of you have asked me for years because you know that I am a highly spiritual person, very well versed in the Bible. You know, when the cameras turn on in this studio that I'm in, and I can hold up for you my personal Bible, and you could see the hundreds of Post-its in that Bible, you'll see that they weren't put in yesterday for effect. Here it is. It's a collection of many years of little more. You can't, there's so many Post-its I can't find the pages. What I'm trying to say to you is I actually read the Bible. I know the Bible. I wouldn't say I memorized it, but I know it very well. And I swear by this every day. I try to be as honest as a man can be, especially when you don't have a scripted show and you follow a train of thought. You have to be very careful where you go. And the one guiding principle is always the same. Try to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God, and you'll never go wrong. If you're used to BSing the public, and you do it regularly, you're going to get caught, especially if you go off script. So I want to finally tell you that there is, in my opinion, proof of a God in the hereafter. And I'm not going to talk about it today. I'm talking a year ahead from now. So after Scorched Earth, restoring the country after Obama, I'm going to restore religion after Obama.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
I saw a story yesterday before I left the air that I didn't dare read on the air. You know the Department of Homeland Security and what a failure it is. They permitted the Boston Marathon bombing. They permitted the bombings in Orlando. They permitted the bombings in Southern California. They had these people who did it to Muslims under their eye, under their radar, and they didn't arrest them. They didn't fire the idiot who runs DHS, Jay Johnson, the Washington lobbyist. He came out yesterday with a speech that should chill every American. He wants a special declaration to the Department of Homeland Security to take charge of the elections in the United States of America. Do you realize what he's saying? They want an absolute coup. If a gang took over America, if Black Lives Matter took over America and did a thing like this, you'd say, that's outrageous. They can't do that. What do you mean they can't do that? They're doing it right in front of your eyes. The criminal gang running America has just landed 10,000 Muslim Syrians in the United States of America without a peep from a congressional figure, without a peep from anyone in the media. He violated the Constitution. He violated the wishes of the American people. He violated the wishes of Congress. Moreover, he violated our national security by bringing in 10,000 Syrians. And because, you know, it's like any criminal. If you don't stop them, they escalate their acts. You ask anyone, it's like a drug. Criminal behavior is like using drugs. The more you use, the more you need. Obama's criminal behaviors are an example of a man who is seeking a greater thrill to see what he can get away with next. So he does one thing and there's no opposition. So now he has to escalate his crimes against America. So he escalates it. Guess what? No opposition. He doesn't get a big enough thrill. He has to escalate the crimes against America. So he escalates his actions against America, and there's not a peep of opposition. Zero. It's unbelievable to me. And I'll tell you more about it because it's frightening to believe that this guy at DHS was, first of all, not fired numerous times, but now he has the audacity to come out and have the nerve to say that he wants to take over the elections in America, calling it, listen to this, under the guise, listen to how clever this gang is. He says it is the equivalent of our electrical grid. He says our elections are critical infrastructure, and he has a right to take over our elections. You have no idea what I'm saying to you, because this is so big that it's going right past your eyes. I want you to listen to Jay Johnson, head of Department of Homeland Security, in a minute, saying that he wants to take charge of the elections in the United States of America. This is a day after, by the way, a day after we were told by another division of the gang that if there is a death during the campaign of either candidate, they will suspend the election. They're basically telling us that if Trump wins, they'll suspend the election because something's going to happen, or they're going to take control of the election to make sure Trump can't win. And meanwhile, at the same time this is going on, there's no opposition. I love the early morning just before dawn. The slightest amount of light wakes me up. I don't care what blackout shades I use. That way, okay, the animal thing. And in that moment that the light comes through, I don't get out of bed. I train myself to stay in a semi-hypnotic state. That subconscious, conscious state that we all go into. It is one of the most creative times of the day. I don't know if you know that. You ask anyone who's creative how great that time is for thinking about what it is you want to create, whether you be a painter, a writer, a surgeon, a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer. Any productive member of society knows that he or she has to think about what they're going to do that day and in what order and how they're going to do it. You can lay it out in those moments. Well, in the dawn of today, I thought of Jay Johnson saying he wants to take control of the elections. And I said, this can't be going on in my country in front of my eyes, that there is literally a slow-moving coup occurring right in front of our eyes, and they're getting away with it on a daily basis, and there's virtually no opposition. I don't expect weaklings like Wolf Blitzer to say anything, or phonies like Jake Tapper, or the others on NBC, the Chuck Todd with a fake beard. They're all beards for Obama. But the people, we run this country. Why are we powerless? Why are the tens of millions of us so powerless, I ask myself, when there's only a gang of about 100 destroying this nation, stealing it on a daily basis? It's utterly unbelievable to me. Meanwhile, in Brazil, the first female leader of Brazil was stripped of her presidency in an historic impeachment vote because of corruption. And if you study this story, what she has done in Brazil is identical to what Obama has done in America, almost point by point. The difference is they have democracy in Brazil and an opposition party, and we have no opposition party and no democracy in our political structure in this country anymore, and it's going to get a lot worse, by the way. Rousseff stripped the presidency in a historic impeachment vote in Brazil. She was the first female leader. I'm not celebrating that she was a woman and got knocked out, but the corruption is what knocked her out. They threw her out. She's a far leftist, by the way. A radical leftist on the order of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Let me tell you, the parallels are overwhelming. And she was thrown out during an impeachment vote. She represented the leftist Workers' Party, which is exactly the equivalent of the Democrat Party of today in the United States of America. And the sweeping corruption scandals, along with the worst economic crisis in decades, and the government's tone-deaf responses to the souring national mood, I'm quoting the New York Times now, led to her downfall. Why are the same elements in the United States of America not leading to the downfall and impeachment of Obama and the absolute rejection of Hillary Clinton, who was an equivalent of this woman? Now, here's the important thing. To many of her critics, we read, the impeachment was a fitting fall for an arrogant leader. Who does that remind you of? Barack Obama. At the helm of a political movement that had lost its way. Who does that remind you of? Barack Obama, who supports Black Lives Matter and all the other leftist slime of the United States of America. But listen to this. Her leftist supporters call her impeachment a coup, even though it was voted upon. They're calling it a coup. The corruption was overwhelming. think of the congresswomen and the senators in San Francisco and their many deals with their family members. That's not corruption? The scandal-plagued party of Brazil is not equivalent to the scandal-plagued Democrat Party of today, especially with the green rackets, especially with the Clinton Foundation. You name it, they're doing it. Now, you read further into this article, and you see the Workers' Party of Brazil that supported this corrupt woman is almost identical to the United States in the sense that they're very much policy-wise like that of the Democratic Party. And I'll read it to you. You can't believe the parallels. They're overwhelming. So the Brazilian leader was thrown out on an impeachment vote. The fact of the matter is what she did in Brazil parallels what Obama is doing in the United States of America. Moreover, what Hillary will continue to do, God forbid the American people are stupid enough to elect a corrupt woman to the presidency of the United States of America. So here we are. I mean, the show is moving up and the country is moving down. And I was talking about the impeachment of the first woman president of Brazil. She was a member of the far left party, just like Obama. And while she herself, listen to this carefully, was not impeached because she personally enriched herself, she was impeached because she juggled the books to make the economy look better than it was. Does that sound familiar? Transferred assets from state-run banks to make the books look better. Didn't Obama just transfer $400 million to the corrupt Islamist nation of Iran? Where'd that money come from? Where was the $400 million sitting? Ask yourself, where was the $400 million that he took it? Did Congress approve it? No. So where was the money? We had an accountant on who said that 2 weeks ago. Ask where the money was. That's an impeachable offense. There's one crime after another going on right in front of our eyes here. Now, look, you know I'm all in for Donald Trump, and I've been so from the beginning for many reasons. Not because I like his hairstyle. It's because I like his politics. He's as close to borders, language, and culture as I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I want him to win. I think it's our last chance. Otherwise, we're going to go by the way of the far-left Armed Revolutionary Guard movement in Brazil. This woman, Rousseff, by the way, as a youth, was a member of the Armed Revolutionary Youth, the equivalent of, let's say, the Black Lives Matter or Black Panthers of our time, who would be armed and dangerous in the streets of America. Sound familiar? That's who she was. Nevertheless, it was Trump who came on the show in 2011, and even then, he was laying out issues, even though the media says he's not specific, he just mumbles, he speaks in generalities, bullcrap. He was laying out on my show in 2011 his positions, and I'm going to give you a special today. You're going to get a copy of that MP3 for free, a 2011 Trump interview with me, and hear how specific Trump is on the issues, even back in 2011, despite media lies. All you got to do is simply pre-order Scorched Earth at Amazon.com or at your favorite bookstore, and all you do is email a receipt to scorchedearthbook@gmail.com, and what happens is you automatically are going to receive this bonus MP3 free of charge. It's a great offer because it's free. Chargers to greet Colin Pupiknik with a salute to the military on Thursday night. That's the controversial failed football player with the Christian tattoos who allegedly became a Muslim once he met a woman who's a Muslim. He now hates America. Chargers to greet Colin Pupiknik with a salute to the military on Thursday night. You see, it's not his hometown of San Francisco where you can get away with this trashy talk against America. They accept that here. That's part and parcel of the lie of San Francisco. But for the first time on the field since sitting for the national anthem, he's coming into the NFL's #1 military town on a night dubbed the Salute to the Military. That's very interesting. As one African-American in red, white, and gold sits during the song, another Petty Officer First Class Stephen Powell in dress military white sings it. A color guard representing the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and 240 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines holding a massive super flag on the field will aid the visual aspect of the performance of the Star-Spangled Banner at Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. And then, of course, at halftime, the Chargers will recognize 6 Vietnam War veterans as a remembrance of the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. The Chargers will also have Wounded Warriors as special guests and a patriotic fireworks show to wrap up halftime. Now, there's going to be a lot of patriotic stuff there. Before the game, a group of Navy SEALs plans to parachute down upon Qualcomm Stadium, and a Marine Corps band provides entertainment. All of this, and here we are in San Francisco sending a miserable, rotten, American-hating lout to sit out the American flag, the anthem, the American anthem. What can I say about it that I haven't said already? Nothing. If he hates the country so much, why doesn't he move to a country where he can make more than $100 million a year while spitting on their national anthem? How would they treat him in Uganda or Zaire or China or any other nation on earth if he did that, even in Brazil? Can you imagine a Brazilian sports soccer player not getting up for the national anthem of Brazil? I don't think they'd put up with it. They'd burn the stadium down. But here in America, because it's anti-American, all the vermin in the media are saluting this lout. All right, I said that. I got it out of my system. I can move on. Be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. In New York. It's a big deal. You understand what a big deal it is. You're not going to read about it anywhere, but I'm going to tell you about it because it's a huge deal. And number one, not only is this show number one in New York on WABC and doing well in many other markets, and you have to know that because no one else will tell you, but I beat my number one competitor on the call letter deficient station in New York City. And he's a fine broadcaster with his own TV show. I'm not knocking him. I'd have to go in the gutter to knock the guy. He lost. We run against each other in the New York market, and I beat him every time for the last couple of years. And he's the one I ran against for the Radio Hall of Fame. Thank you for doing that for me. So I have a very loyal audience, and I want to thank you for that one. Now a special treat is Donald Trump in Mexico. Great sound, very important. Listen to it. You're not going to believe what he said.
Having a secure border is a sovereign right and mutually beneficial. We recognize and respect the right of either country to build a physical barrier or wall on any of its borders to stop the illegal movement of people, drugs, and weapons.
God.
Cooperation toward achieving this shared objective, and it will be shared, of safety for all citizens is paramount to both the United States and to Mexico.
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful, and Hillary called it a stunt. No, this is no stunt. He outfoxed the media, and he outfoxed his opposition, and he outfoxed Vicente Fox by going to Mexico. He did a great speech, and by the way, it'll be of mutual benefit to both nations. A wall will prevent weapons from going into Mexico. They have a very big problem with U.S. weapons going in there. It'll cut down on crime in Mexico and in the U.S. Here's some other news you didn't hear yet today. There was a primary. Actually, it was yesterday. Rubio, McCain, and Wasserman Schultz. Remember her? Wasserman Schultz. She won in the primary. Rubio, the ice cream man, he won in the primary. And poor old McCain won in the primary. All right, that's politics. It shows you it's almost impossible to get rid of an incumbent. Almost impossible. They're like fossils embedded into the bedrock of a corrupt nation. To close the show, we have a real treat for you. Here's John Kerry saying the media should not cover terrorism so that people don't know what's going on. You're not going to believe it. Listen to this.
If you decide one day you're going to be a terrorist and you're willing to kill yourself, you can go out and kill some people. You can make some noise. Perhaps the media would do us all a service if they didn't cover it quite as much. People wouldn't know what's going on.
You hear the clapping? People wouldn't know what's going on. That's the State Department. Gee, I wonder why people in the State Department applauded when Kerry said people wouldn't know what's going on. Could it be because they work for the most corrupt